Yo, what is up, guys? Joker bringing you another video for Path of Exile 2, going over the 0.2 patch notes for the Dawn of the Hunt League. TLDR, I'm not a fan of these patch notes, so I'm pretty much just going to speed run through the parts that I care about, since overall these were relatively depressing, right? I don't want this video to be purely negative. I want it to be informative, so I kind of want to let you guys know the stuff that did change that I think is important. I'm not even going to really speak on the other stuff, hopefully, unless I go off on a tangent. So let's get started. Let's start with what a league is for those of you who may be unaware. A league is literally just a fresh start, right? Your character, all of your currency, all of your items are moved over to standard, and you start in a brand new, fresh economy with a brand new character with completely empty tabs and nothing's in your stash. In this league, they're going to be introducing one new class, the Huntress, 5 new ascendancies, the Amazon and the Ritualist for the Huntress, the Smith of Kataba for the Warrior, the Tactician for the Mercenary, and the Lich for the Witch. They're also going to be introducing 25 new skills. Majority of them are primarily spear skills. And when I say primarily, I do mean primarily, because 22 of the new, or I think it's 20 of the new skills are spear skills, because Sniper's Mark and Barrage are not new skills. But I believe the rest of those are. So there's like 5 new skills that aren't spear skills. There's 100 new supports. We haven't seen those. There's 2 new item classes, spears and bucklers. There's 100 new uniques. We've seen about 4 of those. The endgame maps, we've seen about 2 of. Unique strong boxes, we haven't. I think we've seen 1 of, right? We really haven't seen a lot of this new stuff. Even in the patch notes, it doesn't go over a lot of this new stuff unless I'm just completely blind. But I did read through majority of the patch notes before I stopped because it was just making me too upset. But yeah, so one of the new mechanics that they're introducing is Rogue Exiles. This is going to be a pseudo PvP encounter, right? Because these Rogue Exiles are going to be decked out and performing like regular players, controlled by AI, essentially, right? It's like running a PvE PvP game where sometimes you'll run into those random bots that will run around that they use to make the world feel alive. That's kind of what I feel these Rogue Exiles are going to be. Their gimmick is if they're wearing a unique and you kill them, you get that unique. But Rogue Exiles are notoriously rippy in PoE, so I have no idea how this is going to perform in PoE 2 when you're significantly squishier. This is probably just going to be a death sentence for the majority of players, for the majority of their early time in endgame. It's probably going to piss off a lot of people and make a lot of people stop playing. Then they're introducing Asmeri and Wisp, which are essentially recycled tormented spirits from Path of Exile 1. In case you don't know how tormented spirits work, tormented spirits are a ghost that fly around touching mobs, giving them innate quantity and rarity, and then they possess a rare mob, right? Giving it a buff to its stats and increased quantity and rarity. The Asmerian and Wisp seems like it works identically to that. It seems like it literally is a reskinned tormented spirit. I don't know if they didn't think people would notice that, or if they totally did and they're just leaning into it, like how they slightly changed the other mechanics. They didn't even try on this one. All they did is change the sprite. They changed it from a ghost to a glowing orb. Added 15 new suckable items with new modifiers that can craft onto your items. Don't get too excited. The vast majority of this is runes. So that's really cool. All they really did is add a lesser and greater rune for the vast majority of this. I think there are a few other items that are not the greater and lesser runes that almost the same thing with like primarily spear skills. This is primarily runes, right? The items were primarily runes with very few other things. Twilight Reliquary Keys give you a shiny foil version of a unique, which serves no purpose in this game because they actually nerfed every viable unique. So, unless a lot of these uniques, which granted they did say they would be stronger, more mid and in game uniques, they kind of nerfed every good unique currently. So, I am not using these keys. I would never use these keys. I never recommend using these keys unless we find out if there's like a mage blood or something that came with these 100 new unique items. Otherwise, since all of the current uniques are garbage, literally no reason to actually use these keys. They went ahead and they allow you to use essences on they're allowing you to use vol orbs on essence now, which work like the remnant of corruption. In case you're unaware of what that is or what that does, it corrupts an essence in your map. So it has a couple of outcomes. If I remember correctly, it can turn all of the essence into one essence, it can upgrade the essence, or it can upgrade beyond to like T0, right? What I mean by that is currently in PoE, there's a term, MEDS, right? Misery, Dread, Scorn, Envy. Those are the 4 runes that you can corrupt to get essentially T0 essence, I'm assuming. Those are going to be the same essence that you're able to corrupt with Vol Orbs to get the T0 essence. But yeah, apart from that, it would be regular essence, greater essence, and then what I'm going to call T0 essence. Apart from that, there was actually surprisingly little I actually cared about. So the only other thing that I cared about really is going to be the changes to the end game and how that works. So now how end game works is you're essentially going to be chasing corruption through your atlas, and corruption has been changed. Corruption now is going to lead you to a citadel where you fight a boss, where it sends out a wave like a tower to cleanse the surrounding maps. And in cleansed maps, you can find fracturing orbs, the new crafting system that they're introducing into PoE 2. Essentially, fracturing orbs really aren't a crafting system, but I like how it pairs with other crafting systems in PoE. I think it could be a very good first step depending on what they are introducing in the future, which they do need to introduce a lot of crafting. So I think fracturing being kind of locked in as one of the things that is already there is a good thing. But yeah, that's essentially how it works. You're chasing corruption through a map. You're going to kill a boss. It's going to send out a wave, and that wave is going to cleanse the corruption and surrounding maps. Apparently, there's going to be reasons for you to want to run corrupted zones. Like they're no longer going to just be a +1. Now they're going to be content, sometimes even corruption specific content. So it makes it seem like there's going to be some mechanics that can only spawn in corruption. And then on the flip side, they say essentially the same thing about the cleansed areas. Besides them being able to drop the fracturing orb, they have their own set of monsters and rewards. So my best comparison that I can give you guys is something like how you would farm Harbinger for the currency shards and the fracturing orb, compared to how you would farm Beyond for like the tainted currencies and the extra density, right? That's what I'm assuming these two are going to kind of play like. I have a feeling it's probably going to play something like that, where you're going to really only farm the, I don't know what that was, but that was loud. I do apologize. You're really going to only farm the cleansed zones for the chance of the fracturing orb, and you're going to be farming corrupted the rest of the time because it's probably going to give you much more bubblegum currency and random content in the maps. Oh, I just stabbed myself. Um, Apart from that, you now have 6 lives in portals, and the reason why I say 6 lives and not 6 portals is because the way it reads is once you enter a map, you can exit a map an infinite amount of times as long as you have not died. Once you die, that's when it starts to count your portals, I believe. I don't know, it's put very weirdly in the patch notes, but that's essentially how it works. You have 6 lives, essentially 6 deaths in each map, and the more modifiers on each map, the less portals you have, right? The less lives you have. So I'm assuming it's going to be something like in white maps, you have 6 portals. In blue maps, you have 5 to 4 portals. In yellow maps, you have 3 and less, right? That's what would make sense. Uh, there's a third of the amount of towers that there previously was, but they did buff towers significantly, making it so tablets now affect twice as many maps, and tablets also have 4 times the amount of content. Well, can have 4 times the amount of content as previously, as well as you can put 3 tablets on 1 tower. So on average, overall, you should be getting more content by like a significant margin in your maps, right? Uh, Rare monsters on average have more mods. I don't, I don't, I don't get this part, but yeah, rare monsters on average, you're more likely to run into like 4 mod rare mobs. I don't know why. I think the justification that they used was that it balances out the drops, right? It's going to give you more rewards. I mean, in my opinion, that sounds like it's just going to make the maps more rippy, but you know, whatever, to each their own. Waystones no longer drop at lower tiers. They'll only drop at the tier that you're currently running. So, like if you're running T15 maps, you should only be dropping T15 waystones. Bosses drop waystones 1 tier higher, and they have a 100% drop chance. So if you kill a boss, you're guaranteed at least 1 waystone 1 tier higher than the map you're currently running. So does this mean bosses drop purely T16 waystones now? I do not know. Might cap out at T15, and the only way to get T16s might still be like through corruption. The last rare mob in a map also drops a waystone, so you should theoretically infinitely sustain as long as you don't wipe on every map. Apart from that, Doriani will sell you a waystone that is 1 tier under the last map that you completed. So you cleared a T15, he'll sell you a T14. You no longer have to buy 1,000 maps and try to 3-to-1 them. They're introducing nerfed recombinators. Depending on how nerfed they are is going to be really if this is even worth running, right? Because Expedition also did get buffed previously in 0.1, so this is like a double buff to Expedition. Expedition might be really, really strong now. We already talked about tablets being adjusted. They nerfed the magic find modifiers on tablets. Pinnacle bosses have about half the health at level 0 that they previously had. The Atlas tree is getting nerfed for boss fight drop chance. So essentially, splinters for the boss fights. So like the simulacrum splinters, the breach splinters, the audience with the king, the logbook, all of those nodes are getting nerfed in the Atlas skill tree. And now omens always appear with a chance for there to be multiple omens. So essentially, there's always going to be an omen in a ritual. Probably going to be a shitty omen, but at least there would be an omen, right? So there's going to be a large amount more omens in the economy than there was in the original early access, which is good for what is it? The Omen of Sinestral Alchemy or something like that, that gave you like the maximum amount of prefixes on an item if you used. You used to be able to do that for like an early level juicing until it got really expensive and it wasn't really worth it after that point. Might be worth it again because they're probably going to be super common. But yeah, that's primarily all I cared about with the endgame changes. In the ascendancy changes, there was really only one thing that I cared about or felt like was important enough to bring attention to, and that's the Infernalist demon form changes. Really popular last league. You would stack like infinite demon form as like your bossing character, right? That is now capped unless you take two separate ascendancies, and even then, the way that they changed the life drain to work, I don't think you're going to be able to scale it really high regardless the amount of cheese you try. Another thing in the same line with ascendancies is the fact that they made a change where you can essentially no longer get boosted through Uber Lab anymore, right? This change right here means that you have to be at least level 25 to enter Kroll difficulty and at least 50 to enter any end game zones. So this means that you can't really get any kind of the super early, super cheeky boost that people were doing where they were being like uber ascended at level 19. Moving on to the passive skill tree changes, there was once again very few that I actually felt were important enough to mention, but I did think a couple of things were funny. So they went ahead and they removed 12 jewel sockets from the passive skill tree. They added the additional property doubles mana cost to Eldritch Battery. So now if you take Eldritch Battery, everything just costs double for you. Spaghettification now grants plus 13 to all attributes as opposed to 7% increased. Like those were a couple of the ones that I just found funny. So like the TLDR is they just turned a bunch of the good nodes bad. And wrapping up the video, this thing, I only have 10 lines of notes on the entire skill gems, so let's jump into it. In the skill gem nerfs, the only things that I found notable, Archmage, right? We all know it was going to be nerfed, but I think it's actually still viable. Like it got hit pretty hard, but it's still like viable, I believe, even with the fact that Spark got nerfed as well. But you can do like Archmage with like so much you don't have to do Spark. That's why I'm like it got nerfed like hard, but not hard enough to take it out of viability. I guess that's what made it kind of so OP in the first place, right? They added blink as a travel skill. I found that funny. That it's just that's a notable blink. Blink is now a travel skill. Barrier invocation loop is dead because they changed how it worked. Now it only works when enemies hit you. Cast on minion death is nerfed because the minions now have to die. They can't like expire or anything. They do have to die. Cast on shock is nerfed heavily. Pretty much any type of CC towards enemies got nerfed really, really heavily. Like pin, armor break, electrocute, freeze, like a lot of this stuff got hit really, really hard. Oh, combat frenzy. This one's funny, right? This is one that I definitely wanted to show. So combat frenzy now has gain a frenzy charge when you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy no more than once every 5.3 to 4.1 seconds at levels 8 to 20. Previously 2.4 to 1.58. The funny part about this is in 0.1 they literally buffed it because no one was using it because it wasn't worth it. So essentially all they did is they re-nerfed combat frenzy back to a point where people probably aren't going to use it. Right. So I found that really funny. Apart from that, they removed Grim Feast, like just in general. They just removed it. So that was another one that was pretty funny, right? No longer can be engraved. Lightning arrow now dissipates after being chained. Lightning rod arrow, sorry, now disappears after being chained to 6 times at all gym levels. Spark got nerfed with less projectile speed and less projectiles, so a double nerf. The Tempest Bell needs 10 charges to proc and dies after 10 hits. So big nerf to Tempest Bell because you can now only proc one of them as well. So now it doesn't last as long. It takes way longer to get it onto the board, and you can only have one of them. So Tempest Bell is going to still be used, but not like nearly as OP as it was, which I mean, I guess kind of makes sense. The abuse, getting rid of that, making the limit 1 makes sense, but the whole making it 10 charges and last 10 hits, that's kind of heavy-handed. On kill effects from Herald skills will no longer trigger other Herald skills, so they got rid of the cascading clear. So now clear is going to feel like shit. Awesome. Apart from that, they are turning Wind Dancer into some kind of a combat skill. Essentially, what they're doing is they're giving it like base crit, and they're giving you less evasion when you have it per like layer. So it's no longer like a defensive aura. Now it's like you want to get hit, and you're using this as I don't know. I don't know what the fuck they're trying to do. They nerfed Wind Dancer and they tried to change it into something that it's not, right? I mean, support changes, and then Ingenuity is dead is the only other thing. Like if we go down to what the new Ingenuity does, it's useless. So the Ingenuity belt no longer has 40 to 80% increased bonuses gained from equipped rings. It now has 20 to 30% bonus is of your left ring, and 20 to 30% bonuses of your right ring, as well as it has charm slots. Okay. I mean, okay, but on average, you're nerfing it by what, 20 to 50%, right? Because it's 20% at a low and it's 50% at a high, and that's per ring. So like even at max, this would be, wait, yeah, it is just dead, right? Because they nerfed this thing hella hard, where it used to be 40 to 80% of bonuses gained from equipped rings. Now it's 20 to 30 of a ring. So they cut it in less than half, and they cut it by like a quarter of its power, right? If not more, if I'm understanding that right or wrong. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the 0.2 patch notes. I'm not happy. A lot of people aren't happy. This isn't really what people wanted to see. I can back that up. This has 115k views with 2,000 likes. So it has like a 2% like rate. Like, has this gone up at all? Oh, I'm sorry. It's at 143k and 2.6. So it gained like 30,000 views and a few hundred likes. Yeah, people are not happy. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with this and future content. Until next time, take care.